Specifically, how will you encourage the competition committee to simplify the rule so it will embrace maybe some common sense and allow fans and players to have it pass the eye test?
Well, listen, Brian, let me just go back. You know, when we went through these 150 plays just a couple of weeks ago, we had Hall of Famers in there. And when you say it makes sense, there are a lot of people who have different perspectives on that. There was a lot of disagreement in the room what a catch and what a catch wasn't. And so people with great football experience can disagree on that. As an example, I've said this before, but Chris Carter believes that you should make a catch, you should stand up and you hand it to the referee. And if you don't do that, it's not a catch. And I admire and respect him a great deal. But there are others who have a view, if you get possession of it and you get that second foot down, it's immediately a catch. So I think intelligent and thoughtful and people who have great football experience can disagree on what a catch is or what a catch isn't. From our standpoint, I think I would like to start back, instead of adding to the rule or subtracting to the rule, is start over again and look at the rule fundamentally from the start. Because I think when you add or subtract things, you can still lead to confusion. And these rules are very complex. You have to look at what the unintended consequences are of making a change, which is what the competition committee, in my view, does so well and with so much thought. We're trying to supplement that here a little bit by, in advance of their analysis, giving them some thought starters of the ideas that we think we could focus on. My history on this, whether it's celebration rule or the extra point or any rule that we've implemented, is that we try to encourage them to focus on 2 or 3 things that we think will make a big difference in our game. Clearly, catch, no catch has been a lot of discussion and a lot of disagreement over, and I think we can clarify this rule. I think we can do it with a lot of hard work, focus, and get to a place where I'm not going to tell you there won't be controversy, but I believe that we can get to a much better place.
Hi, Justin Dungy, NBC Sports. I witnessed a lot of amazing group celebrations by teams. What's your thoughts on the celebrations, and are you going to make any changes next season to make it more entertaining for kids?
Well, Justin, it's a great question. I think that the rule changes that we made this past off season really achieved what we wanted. It allowed the players to express their enthusiasm, their passion, their individualism, and it sounds like you agree with that. Is that correct? And I think it did it in such a way as, frankly, the players took ownership of it. When we made this rule change, Troy Vincent and I spent an awful lot of time. I think we spoke to over 100 players at various times in the spring about what the parameters were, what we were trying to achieve. And they truly took ownership and said, we understand what you're trying to achieve. We understand what we have to do to be responsible in this area and do it with class, not to do it in a way that in any way can look like we're taunting our opponents. And they did a great job of it. I think we had 4 penalties the entire season here. And I think that's a significant shift, and I'm glad to hear that not only the younger generation, but I think most generations appreciate it. I think we'll continue in your second part of your question about what do we do to make the game more attractive to the younger generation. A part of that is making the game available on the platforms in which you spend most of your time. That could be a mobile device of some type, phone or tablet. It also would be working on new opportunities to engage with fantasy football, which isn't new, but esports is growing out of that opportunity through Madden esports. And we see that as a great opportunity to engage our fans on different platforms in different ways, and frankly, maybe even all year round, because the games obviously aren't going to be played all year round. But we're going to come to you as the next generation and bring football to our fans and allow them to engage. Thanks, Justin.
Hi, Roger. Good afternoon. Dan Kaplan with Sports Business Journal. In December, when your new contract extension was announced, your chief spokesman said it would likely be your last, but you told reporters later that day that you didn't agree with that. Do you envision this, that you'll serve another term beyond this current extension?
Dan, I honestly can't tell you exactly what I said, but I have not given any consideration. I just signed a new contract. I'm going to work on that. I'm going to stay focused on that. I'm not thinking about a next one, or I'm thinking about the challenge that we as a league have, how we can continue to grow this league, how we can make it better. And that's on a variety of fronts that we've talked about, whether that's continuing to evolve and have the best labor agreement, which we think we have, whether that's continuing to build our media business in a thoughtful, smart way, which I think this morning's announcement on Thursday Night Football shows the strength of our content. It shows the strength of our game. We had every network that was interested in that. We had very aggressive bidding. And we see that our content, even in an environment that's changing very dramatically in the media world, we're seeing our content stand above everything else. And that's something that we're excited about. One of the reasons we're so optimistic about the future, but it's also something that I have to spend my next several years focusing on. And I'm going to fulfill this contract and do the best I possibly can, and we'll worry about that another day. You might also have to talk to my wife about that, Dan. So.
Hi, Roger. Michael David Smith with Pro Football Talk. You cited the Rooney Rule in response to the previous question about diversity, but the Raiders were found to have complied with the Rooney Rule even though they first agreed to hire John Gruden and then only after that interviewed minority candidates. So how is that promoting diversity if a team isn't really considering the candidates that they're interviewing?
Well, Michael, let me say that there was a full investigation of that by our staff. They went through it in great detail. They spoke to every one of the participants to make sure that we checked the facts. I would say that the conclusion of the investigation doesn't jive with what you just stated in your question, and that it was actually with the Rooney Rule. So I think we'd have a disagreement on the facts, but that's fair for you to have it. But we've spoken to every single one of those individuals and made sure that that was the case.
Roger, Mark Maskey from the Washington Post.
Yeah, Mark.
When the owners met in October in New York, there was no action taken regarding the end of the policy, no changes made. Do you expect that issue to be revisited by ownership at March meeting or May meeting or beyond? And do you anticipate any changes being made?
Mark, I think our focus is going to continue on building the platforms that the owners and players spent a great deal of time with unprecedented dialogue creating those platforms all season long. I think we're excited by that. You all know that we created a committee of owners and players that have met in person once, on the phone a second time, and will meet again sometime in the next 30 days. And the efforts there are to continue to make recommendations to our players, to our ownership, on what we can do to evolve that platform, make the platform effective in what the players were really interested in, which is making our communities better, to seeing injustices that they see in their local communities that we can address collectively and support our players in that. So that's why I think where our focus will remain.
Jose Villalba from Multimedios and Milenio in Mexico. I was wondering if with all the stuff of the future games in Mexico, if there was a plan, talks with other cities other than Mexico City, maybe Monterrey or Guadalajara, to maybe have future games, stadiums, constructions possibly on Monterrey. And second part, did you talk to Robert Kraft, owner of the Patriots, or Bill Belichick about Belichick's comments over after the game in Mexico, in which he said something that they were fortunate there were any earthquakes or volcanic eruptions during the time in Mexico? Could you answer both of these questions, please?
Yes, I think we know there's interest in other cities in Mexico other than Mexico City. We have played in other cities, as you know, and we think that that's something we may consider in the future. But right now, we have such a great arrangement in Mexico City with the stadium, with the authorities, with the fan base there, that I think we want to continue and build on that. We want to keep the focus on that and make it even more successful than it is today. The second part of your question is, listen, all the players, coaches, ownership comments, we take all of that in. I'm not going to address that specific comment because that should be addressed by either Coach Belichick or the Crafts. From our standpoint, the host we had in Mexico City, the experience we had in there was terrific. People could not have been more supportive. We were glad to be there to try to help the community recover from the tragic earthquake that they had. And we participated in rebuilding a school there. That was something that was very important to us and the teams, including the Patriots and the Raiders. And we look forward to going back.
Roger, Bob Glauber from Newsday. Following up on Mark's question about the anthem, will there be any consideration to keeping the teams in the locker room while the anthem is played? And also, as a follow-up, have you spoken at all to President Trump about his frequent criticism of players who do protest during the anthem?
The answer to your second question is no. The answer to your first question is I don't know what we'll consider in the offseason. I'm still trying to get through the Super Bowl. We'll spend and turn our attention to the priorities in the offseason, with the one exception of the competitive issues, which we always start immediately after the regular season, frankly, even during the regular season, because the competition committee gets started right away. In fact, I think we have our first meeting of the competition committee next week.
Hey, Roger. Tom Lydon, Boston 25 News. In a league that's built for parity, what does it say to you that the Patriots have been able to put together this incredible run of success? And I guess at the end of the day, from a league perspective, do you consider it to be good for business?
Well, I think the competitive nature of our league, and I mentioned it in my opening remarks, I think we have something truly unique in this league. 8 of 12 teams that didn't make the playoffs before, 2 of the 4 championship teams that played in the championship game were in last place and went to first in their division and went to the championship game. That's extraordinary. And I think that's great for our league. What I think it does say is the incredible achievement that the Patriots as a team, as an organization, have achieved. It's really remarkable that they're in, and going for their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years in this kind of a system where keeping that group together, changing whatever they need to change, whether it's players or coaches, or they do that in a way and still create success. I just think that I marvel at that. I think our other clubs marvel at that. I think fans marvel at that. And I think the balance of having new teams with teams that continue to find ways to win is a great thing for the NFL. And I think it's a great thing for our fans. So you can continue to win, and then also there are teams that can surprise you. And I think that's what makes our game special.
Thank you. Commissioner Emilio Leon, Frog Sports, Latin America. Going back to the Mexico game, do you have any date? Is it going to be a noon game, a late night game, Thursday, Sunday, Monday? Could you tell us, please?
I can't, because we're going to do that in the context of our overall scheduling. It probably won't be determined sometime in mid-April, as we normally do. It's something that we want to make sure we do it when it's a good moment, obviously, in Mexico, but it has to balance in with the rest of our scheduling. So I would expect it will probably play sometime in the same period of November, but those decisions will be made sometime in the next few months.
Roger, Ian Rappaport, NFL Network. Vince McMahon recently announced that he's rebooting the XFL in a couple years. Wondering what your reaction was when you heard that, and do you think it has a chance to be successful, and can it help the NFL in any way?
Ian, honestly, I've been so focused on the NFL postseason and some of the other work we've been done. I obviously am aware of the announcement. I haven't focused on it. We've had several proposals that come direct to us about various forms of spring football that we have considered over the years. We continue to look at that. As you know, and I think we feel very strongly, we want to make sure our game stays strong for the long term. So the opportunity to develop more players, to give them opportunities to play the game so that they can reach the highest level of the NFL is something we always try to do. So we'll consider all these if we're asked to be involved. If not, there may be opportunities where those players get the opportunity to play in the NFL someday. that's great for us. So we'll have to see. I just don't know enough specifics of that proposal.